listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Camunya here. We are back with episode 80 of the Money Monopolizers podcast, and I'm here with my co-host Marlon Wallace. Marlon, how you doing today?
Doing good, bro. I got a lot of stuff that I'm doing all at one time, especially considering the time that we're recording this. We usually record on Saturdays, but we got a few things planned for this weekend, so won't be able to record this weekend. So I'm just doing this, knocking this out during my lunchtime at work. So it's a blessing actually to be able to work from home, because if I was in the office, I wouldn't be able to step out to my car to go record an episode. So everything in life is, I guess, is all in order. It's just a lot of stuff always that's going on. It's just a lot of things that be on your mind. I think that actually ties into our topic a little bit. But before we get into that, how about you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Staying busy. We staying busy for sure. Trying to, really just grow the business, scale the business, growing pains, which we'll talk about. A whole bunch of things.
I'll talk about a whole lot with that.
Just because it's, that's what entrepreneurship is, which is really what we're going to get into today, as y'all can see by the title. So, that being said, we don't even got to waste too much time. We could,
the intro is going to be the whole episode, basically. What we were talking about in the intro is going to be the whole thing. So, got plenty of time for it.
Yeah, man. So, today, we really wanted to get into talking about this whole concept of entrepreneurship and, whether it is actually for you specifically, you, the listener, that's listening to this right now. Because, in this society we live in, especially with social media, entrepreneurship gets glorified a lot. And it's kind of crazy. Just because it's not crazy, it's good, but a lot of people don't understand the reality of entrepreneurship and what it really means. I don't even tell, and this is a side note too, but I don't even like the phrase of entrepreneurship because it's been like defamed. Yeah, almost to a point where it's like it's infamous to me. Like I think that people put entrepreneur, all this stuff in their IG and Twitter bio, and it's like, what are you entrepreneur of? What are you doing? And so it kind of gives entrepreneurship a bad name. It's kind of like, with certain things, they have certain connotations, which you just don't. It's based off society. Like society has created a certain connotation for stuff. So it's like, I'm not gonna say that. I'll just keep it 100. Like if I'm talking to someone that's like, this is when emotional intelligence comes in. You got to know who you're talking to, know who your audience is, right? Because if I'm talking to, let's say I meet a girl, right? And I find her attractive, right? But I didn't necessarily meet her in this space or in this world of entrepreneurship. I'm not going to say I'm an entrepreneur because I know that society has tarnished the name of entrepreneurship. So when I say I'm an entrepreneur, she has triggers and alarms going in her mind immediately saying I'm broke. So she's thinking this dude must be broke, like, because it's like what do people say, especially young people? What do young people just say? When they ain't got really too much going on, a lot of them just say, "Yeah, man, I'm an entrepreneur. I got my own business. I'm doing this,
and
this."
Good, don't it?
Yeah, and it's like in the reality, like they're actually not doing nothing and they're broke. So people just like the phrase and the title, right? People want to put CEO on their email signatures. People want to put CEO in their bios, and it's like it's a lot more to it than that. So to go back to that point, if I meet a girl, most of the time I'm telling her I might say I'm a civil engineer first, just so that
it sound real good. Not like, oh shoot,
yeah, because I know the audience. Yeah, she not from this audience. Now, if I met her, whatever, Instagram or in this space where she already knew kind of the stuff I was doing or whatever, then we could rock out.
Relate to that.
Yeah, so and that's not to say I'm ashamed of it. It's just I know the stigma, so I have the emotional intelligence to know how people will perceive it.
No. So But no, I've been seeing a lot of that on like Instagram and Twitter a lot lately because I've been seeing people that's been retweeting like everybody and their mama want to be an entrepreneur now. So people are like really defaming it. Like people have a negative connotation altogether about that word. So I can see why you wouldn't even want to bring it up anymore because a
Yeah.
lot of people are literally just sick of seeing it because that's what social media is doing. Like it's bringing it to the forefront, and so everybody is going to see it whether they want to or not. Because the people that they were following that didn't care anything about entrepreneurship, now they're retweeting it. So now you're forced to see it, even though you never even cared about it in the first place. And so
Hmm.
now some people are turned off by it because they're like, bro, you sit at your mama crib just kicked up and talking about you sell music like that. Did that entrepreneur like you are saying you're in the same class as somebody like Jeff Bezos, but you aren't doing anything to be on that level or like even have anything to show for it. And so now that's really what people are considering what entrepreneurship is. But that's why we got to really talk about it, like to show what it really is and is it right for you?
Yeah, and it's really become a meme. Like people have made it a meme, and it's just ridiculous because it's like you go to Twitter, especially the whole stimulus packages and stuff were happening. It's like they were literally like clowning people that because they'll say it's actually kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. They'll be like, "Yeah, just got my stimulus check. Gonna go put it was like the $1,400 stimulus. Like they'll be like, I'm just gonna go start my LLC. About to go buy. Gonna go start my LLC. About to go buy a franchise. About to go buy my mama new house. About to go do this, and then with the remaining $1,200, I'm gonna go do this, and this. And it's like they just they've made it to a point where it's not even I personally don't even want to um tell people or show people that I'm an entrepreneur until they know what I'm about. So that being said, we really want to get into kind of the whole concept, the whole conversation of whether entrepreneurship is for you, because I know for me, I know in last year sorry I know last year we had I had a really big revelation. Just speaking on my own personal experience recently, not really a revelation. I just had a thought the other day in terms of, and this is kind of what inspired me to want to kind of talk about this. Just thinking about how last la- or it, last year I took a whole bunch of courses. I took a whole bunch of things and different. I learned from a bunch of different people. I learned about a bunch of different industries, right? Uh, Trucking. At one point, the option stuff. Amazon FBA at one point, just like learning to see what that was about. Um, there's so many. I would have to go look on my Gumroad and my email to see all the courses I took. Cleaning business, all this other stuff to just see to learn to kind of get exposed to different things. Because one thing about me is I like to just see what all is out there. I like to try different things, even if I don't have any intent. Another thing I did too that I didn't even remember was I was doing ebooks on Amazon. That was something that I was doing too. Not ebooks. It was like they call it copywriting, which is like you pretty not copywriting. I was selling books at one point. It was just to see it though. I was just trying. I was trying everything. Um, and my whole thing with that was just to get exposure to as much as I could to see what I liked, right? And so what I related that to was really like real life university or the concept of school, right? The concept of college. You go to college, you try different classes, and you kind of figure out what you relate to the most and what you kind of stick to, right? That's the concept. That's in theory what happens in a school system, which it doesn't happen that way. But in theory, that's what is supposed to happen with a school system, in theory. And so for me, that's kind of what I treated 2020 as. It was really EU, like Entrepreneurship University in 2020 for me, because I was learning from real teachers, number one, right? Entrepreneurs, people that teach entrepreneurship should be entrepreneurs or they should be teaching whatever they've done, right? And then from that, I was able to apply the info I learned. And then after gathering all the data and the intel, figure out which one of these businesses I want to go full force into, right? And so I narrow it down based off of my experience. So that's essentially the same thing, the same concept as school. You go to school, you go take different classes, and then you can kind of figure out what you want to do. But for me, it's much better when you're doing this in terms of entrepreneurship, because now you're learning from real people that are actually doing it, and the money you're spending is going to give you an instant ROI if you apply the knowledge. So, it was crazy. I kind of felt like, man, I went to school in college, we went to school 3.5 years, we graduate, and then, we start working, and it's like you kind of regressed back to school just to kind of say, nah, I didn't do it right the first time. Let me try this again. And then I'm going to do it like this. And now you graduate from EU and you figure out now what you're doing is the business or the thing that you actually want to do. And now you're applying that, and now you can scale that. So it's like you went to school and you learned something that you can actually apply. So, and that's kind of what my whole thought was talking about last week with the, education reform and how it is today. So that was just kind of something that I realized last year. But I think just to clarify before we do go further into this, when we say is entrepreneurship for you, I want people to understand there's a difference between entrepreneurship and investing. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I believe everyone should own assets. Everybody needs to own assets. Whether you are an entrepreneur or not, you need to own assets, because it's just savers or losers. Obviously, we know that you should not be holding on to cash. You need to be holding on. You need to be holding on to assets that are investable. And so, especially with the government printing all this money, like if you're not holding assets, you're getting poor. You're losing wealth. Your wealth is being taken from you literally by the government. So everyone needs to hold assets. So when we say entrepreneurship, we're not talking about investing in stocks. We're not talking about real estate. We're not talking about, cryptocurrency. We're not talking about investing in anything that is for future gain. So that's completely different. That's financial. That's a completely different conversation. That's a financial principle that everyone needs to be doing, investing, right? So that's what I wanted to kind of preface before we got into the bulk of this. But for me though, I kind of want to start this off by just talking about, what entrepreneurship actually is. I've contrasted what it isn't. So what it is to me, and really, if you look at, you go to dictionary, the definition, it's going to tell you entrepreneurship is essentially whenever you set up a business, and you take on some amount of risk or in hopes of a future gain, most likely in terms of profit, right? So you risk financially in hopes to make that money back and more in the future. So that is the definition of entrepreneurship. It's completely different from investing. So you're starting a business with entrepreneurship. So before I go into that, did you want to comment on any of that?
I had a few comments that I was thinking of. I should have been writing them down. But as far as just the entrepreneur versus the investor, I think that was a big point to bring up, because most people would be may think that we're talking about like investing in the stock market, investing in Bitcoin, even real estate. I can see it both ways with real estate, but all of those, you have a different mindset when you are going into those. You're looking for, I think bringing up Cash Flow Quadrant is like critical right now, because Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki really outlines what we're talking about. There's four different types of income earners. There's the employee, there's the self-employed, the business owner, and the investor. All of those different types, or those different income earners, have different words and different verbiage that they use in order to describe what their end goal is. The employee, they're looking for safety and security. They're looking for stability. That's what triggers them to say, okay, this is where I need to be. Self-employed is looking for that independence, that do-it-yourself mentality. Like I want to be my own boss. That's what triggers them. I'm gonna skip over business owner because we're gonna come back to that. But the investor, they're looking for ROI. And so ROI, like return on investment, what can my money do for me? How much return can I get on my money? That's why when I consider stuff like real estate, or consider stuff like stocks and Bitcoin, that you're looking at ROI. That's an investor. You should be doing that because your ROI in your savings account isn't keeping up with the rate of inflation by any means. That's why we say you're losing money. But now the business owner, they're the ones that are synonymous with entrepreneur. They're the ones that are going out to solve problems. They're the ones that are creating systems. They're building something that's going to work for them. They're going to have people or systems in place that's going to be able to produce something at a larger or that can influence a large amount of people. And so that's who we're really focusing on, is the business owner in that cash flow quadrant when we talk about entrepreneur.
For sure, 100%. That's definitely, I think. I mean, if one thing about, to me, entrepreneurship is, and you can apply the real estate thing to entrepreneurship as well. I mean, in a way, depending on what you're doing in real estate. Real estate kind of gives you the best of both worlds, and honestly, which is another reason I love real estate, for the control aspect, which is one great aspect of business. But in the essence of what we're talking about, it's essentially what you said. So, but in order to get into this conversation, what I really want to start off by talking about was, because I had read this in Patrick Bet-David's book, Your Next 5 Moves, and he talked about, because he kind of talked about this concept of entrepreneurship and knowing whether it's for you in there as well. And one thing he talked about in the beginning of the book was knowing yourself, and that's move number one, right? So you had to really know yourself in terms of who do you actually want to be and what do you actually want in life. That's the first thing. It's like knowing what you want, because this is getting into the conversation of whether entrepreneurship is for you. And if it's not, we're going to show you how to see if it is. We're going to show you how to see if it's not. And if it's not, I'll present an alternative later on to entrepreneurship, aside from investing, which is something that everyone should be doing regardless, like I said. So to me, like I said, you got to know yourself. And you had to really know what you want in life. Do you want to be a multi-millionaire? Do you want to be a billionaire? Do you want to make $100,000 a year? Do you want to just have time freedom? Do you just want to make $5,000 a month? What do you actually want in your life? And that's going to kind of tell you, what direction you should be going, number one, right? That's the first step. You got to know yourself. And that's very hard for a lot of people. It takes a lot of time, which is fine, but you got to know that. And the thing is, you got to be real honest with yourself too about it, because one thing, that he said in the book too was, if you look at other people, if you say you want, let's say that I say I want to only make $150,000 a year from my business, or whatever the case may be, cool. That's all you want? Cool. We'll say that's what you want. Now, if you look at other people, you look at someone making $500,000 a year and you envy them, then you're lying to yourself, because you don't want only $150,000 a year. You want more. If you see someone making $1 billion and you envy them, you're lying to yourself. You want more. So you got to be honest with yourself. What do you really want, right? What do you want in your life? Doesn't matter what other people are doing. What do you want in your life? Because that's going to tell you whether or not, you should be considering entrepreneurship based off of what you want. Because if you only want to make $150,000 a year, you might not need to be an entrepreneur. If that's one of your values in terms of becoming, if that's one reason you will become an entrepreneur, if you say, oh, I just want to live a comfortable life to make 150,000, bro, you don't need to be an entrepreneur to make $150,000 a year. I mean, you can, but you don't necessarily need to. And we're going to talk about why you wouldn't necessarily need to here in a minute, but there's different ways to make $150,000. Now, if you're talking about you want to make $1 billion or $1 million, it's another story. Now you might need to, start looking at that. So, but
I think we should get into so what does it look like? Well, what would I need to want in my life in order to be required to be an entrepreneur? So what type of things do I need to be aspiring to have for myself? What would my purpose need to be to say entrepreneur is the way to go?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, that was like a question for you.
Oh, so sorry, to repeat the question.
So what would I need to want in my life for me to say entrepreneur is the way I need to go to achieve it?
I mean, definitely. Okay. It depends on, I'll use me for an example. Because for me, I say that I want to make $50,000 a month in passive cash flow, not cash flow, in pretty much my own income. And I know for me, I wanted to do that by age 28. So I'm going to have to invest a lot of money if I was going to stay in the I quadrant to achieve that. Mm-hmm. So for me, I know I can't do that in the I quadrant. I need to be in that B quadrant because businesses can scale. businesses can I can scale a business a lot faster than I can scale assets like real estate or stock portfolio to $50,000 a month in dividends or $50,000 a month in rental income cash flow. Right. So that's how I look at it for me. I don't know. What about you?
Yep. I mean, I'm on the same exact line. My thing is that it's about your level of thinking. So, like you said earlier, if you're thinking $150,000 a year, you may not entrepreneurship may not even be a necessity. Like it's not a requirement to be an entrepreneur to make $150,000 a year. But like Alex said earlier, if you want to make a million, a billion, if you want to be on Jeff Bezos level, Mark Zuckerberg level, Elon Musk level, those people are building something on their own because no job is going to pay you what the entrepreneurship lifestyle is going to pay you. But you're going to be willing to do the work along with that. But I think as far as what you should be wanting for your life or what kind of things what you want that requires entrepreneurship, I'm thinking things along the lines of like one fundamental thing you always hear people say is, I don't want to work for nobody else. Like, I hate working for somebody else. That may be a first sign that tells you you may need to do something for yourself. Like, you may need to be your own boss. But now you have to consider the fact, are you going to be in the self-employed quadrant? Or are you going to be in the business owner quadrant? That's a whole nother story. But that at least sparks the conversation that entrepreneurship may be where you need to go. Same thing with stuff like time freedom or financial freedom. Both of those things are like key trigger words that says entrepreneurship may be the way I need to go because you're looking for independence from having to answer to somebody else in regards to saying I want to take a vacation or I want to do this for X amount of time throughout the year. Like if I want to take a month vacation and I tell my boss, hey, I'm out of here, he gonna be like, oh yeah, you can stay gone because we're not you ain't coming back if you're gonna take a month vacation. So stuff like that. If those are the goals that you want for your life, then entrepreneurship may be where you need to go in order to achieve that. Because I don't know what boss is giving you that month vacation, but that's personally what I want for my life.
Yeah. So you're just aligning. You got to really essentially align your values in life with kind of, what your values will kind of tell you what you should be doing in that regard, right? If you don't necessarily mind working for other people, you don't need to be an entrepreneur. Definitely, if you don't want financial freedom, you definitely, if you don't mind working till you're 65, you definitely don't need to be an entrepreneur. So, and this is an important conversation to have because people will make it seem like entrepreneurship is like the holy grail, which it's not the only thing. So,
I have one more I want to add in though too. Like as far as like leaving a legacy or passing or like impacting more people, like that's at least at the fundamental. That's what entrepreneurs do, at the fundamental level. Because look at Jeff Bezos. Amazon impacts millions of people per day. You're not impacting one person, your employer. You're impacting millions of people, and people are able to have their lives changed because of what you provide. McDonald's, Walmart. These are all businesses that were created by entrepreneurs in order to impact a multitude of people, not just one person, or not just to provide for your personal family. So I think all of those things are what consists of somebody who should move towards entrepreneurship. If you're looking to have impact on that type of scale, then or not even, it don't have to be on that scale, but just impacting more people than just your immediate family or your employer.
Yeah. And that's again, it goes back to your values. If that's it could be like if you're passionate about something like that, you really want to impact a majority of people and your thing is not even about the money, by all means, you can become an entrepreneur. We just got to always keep in mind what it is we want to determine if we need to be an entrepreneur. What do you want? It's not about what begins. Yeah, it's not about what Twitter and social media is saying or about Instagram is saying about entrepreneurship and how they're glorifying entrepreneurship and like if you don't have a business or whatever, then you're not doing well. Some people are happy in their 9-to-5s. I mean, I can't relate, but some people are happy in their 9-to-5s. I don't see how, but and teach your own. But so I think kind of going deeper into that, one thing about that, you got in addition to that, you got to really audit yourself to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are as well in terms of determining whether entrepreneurship is for you. And so everybody has strengths that they've seen in their lives, that's something that just came naturally to them, and things in their lives that they kind of struggled with that other people didn't struggle with, right? If it's your thing could be if your strength is being a visionary, coming up with ideas if your strength is having people skills, if your strength is, executing, doing things, that other people don't like doing, that could be a strength. If your strength is technical skills, software skills, right, that could be a strength. All those things is something you got to really take like a personal identity kind of audit, not really identity, a personal skill assessment, I guess, and determine what you are actually good at, because that will help you know whether or not you need to be an entrepreneur as well too. Because it's not to say you can't if you're not good at these certain things, if you're not good at one thing or another, but obviously certain traits will definitely help out whenever you are deciding to become an entrepreneur as opposed to others, right? And so that is something that's very important to know. So one thing I want to get into is kind of some of the traits then of successful entrepreneurs that I see in terms of just what I would say we've been in entrepreneurship. Really, I wouldn't say I got into entrepreneurship really until the beginning of last year. So it's been about 18 months that I would consider myself, within that realm of entrepreneurship since, when we started a trucking company and then started the cleaning business later in the year. All those two things alone, and like I said, I went to Entrepreneurship University, figured out what I wanted to do. Those two things alone, being in those two businesses, taught me a lot of the traits that I see that you need to have to be an entrepreneur, right? There are many traits that I think are very important to have if you're going to be an entrepreneur. Lord have mercy. Can't answer that. So and so that's what I want to get into then, and some of those traits. So to me, what I really noticed is that a lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, are really patient. That's one trait that I saw, right? That I noticed. They're really patient. And when I say patient, I mean like you got to really be okay with not making money or getting in any tangible results for a good amount of time. I'm talking like 6 to 12 months. Like you make no money, zero profit for that amount of time. Because not to say it has to happen, but you have to be okay with that in terms of like you can't necessarily be so, quick to quit something because you're not getting immediate results, right? Oh, you're not making money in month one. Oh, I'm quitting. Oh, this isn't working immediately. Oh, I'm quitting. And it's like you got to understand that entrepreneurship is really not a sprint. Like nobody starts a business, nobody starts a successful business, a long-term successful business, and is immediately successful because you don't know what you don't know. You had to learn a bunch of the things within that business to determine, you might get into a business and realize, oh, this actually takes more marketing dollars than I saw. Oh, this actually takes more of an investment. This actually takes more of an investment into, some sort of software that I originally realized. So you don't necessarily know what you don't know until you have been in that business for a good amount of time. And then so for those first few months, you're just learning. You're just going about it, learning the business. You're not even it's kind of like with real estate. Your first real estate deal is never going to make you wealthy. Whether you flip a house for 50,000, 100,000, or even $1 million. I mean, if your first flip is $1 million, then shout out to you. But your first deal is never going to make you wealthy. It's a combination of a lot of deals over time. So that's one thing that I saw. I have a few others that I want to kind of get into, but did you want to comment on that before I?
Yeah, so I was jotting some down as well because it just came to my mind as soon as you said it. So as far as successful traits of entrepreneurs, I'm just going to pretty much comment on what you had said. You said patience, and I'm thinking more so like long-term vision is really the key for that because you have to at least know where you're going, and you have to know that it's a process to getting there. So you can't be discouraged by every little obstacle or every setback that comes your way because you have to have your eyes on the main goal and understand that there is going to be setbacks. And I started thinking about like different things that we've experienced on our journey, whether it was in real estate or whether it was in our businesses. And so like think about the first one I always think about is back when you were working on your first house hack and you were trying to put down the floors in that 90-degree heat.
Man, it was so hot, bro.
And then right after that, I think you spent like 4 months trying to get it rented out. All those things are gonna happen. Like there's gonna be a time where you have to do something you don't want to do, and where things are not going your way. And if you're not willing to stomach those type of things, then entrepreneurship it may not be for you. Because you might want to just have that steady paycheck and just kick back and wait for the next 2 weeks to come through.
Yeah.
And it's a much easier lifestyle than sweating bullets in a 90-degree house because you ain't got no your electricity on, but you want to get you want to get it renovated.
Yep.
And then having the stress of dealing with people is just another thing on top of that, just because of the fact that you have to continue to talk to all of these people off on Facebook Marketplace that keep on saying, "Is it still available?" And you would go over there and show it to them, and well, you try to go over there and show it to them, and they don't show up.
Yeah.
All things like that just are things that's going to happen to you as an entrepreneur, and those are just like two examples out of a million that we already have
Yeah.
in our years of experience.
And that goes into my second one too, in terms of one that I think is probably the most important trait is I call that mental fortitude in terms of like your resiliency and your ability to take those hits. Because I'm gonna be real with you, and this is what Gary Vee says too. Entrepreneurship is nothing but getting punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Like every single day, you're getting punched in the mouth. That's all it is. Like literally, you're getting punched in the mouth every day. Things, and it's kind of like things. It's almost it don't even you shouldn't even and this is something I had to always remind myself and learn every day. It's like you shouldn't even expect things to go right. As long as if things are going right, you should be very worried because something's going to happen, and your body get punched in the mouth somehow, some way. You're gonna get punched in the mouth, and it's about being able to pick up your teeth off the floor, put them back in your mouth, and get back on, get back in the ring.
Just get you some dentures, bro, because they're gonna come out plenty of times.
Yeah, and
So you can pick them back
your
up.
denture's gonna get punched out too. So, it's just all about being able to bounce back. It's just business is all about that. Like it's all about taking those hits and then figuring out what went wrong, applying that new knowledge, right? You can call it you can say the hit is a failure, right? You take that hit, you take that failure, you learn your lesson, and you go back, you apply that new knowledge. Now next time something like that shouldn't happen. So now you've been able to figure out how to solve one problem in a business, a potential problem of happening. Business is all about going in. I see it as you're literally learning along the way. Like you are learning things along the way from experience. Something happens and you go back and you figure out, okay, how can I prevent this from happening again? Right? So it's like it's very important to be able to be very resilient and not look at those as like something that should take you out the game. It's something that is supposed to happen. Those are normal things that happen. As bad as they suck, which they do suck, like they suck a lot. Especially if you're me, who's someone like I'm a type A kind of person that loves everything to be perfect. And so when things aren't perfect, it really gets on my gears. And so, just being able to take those hits is something that I even have had to learn, which I've gotten a lot better at. In that beginning, I tell you back whenever, putting those floors in that house, I was furious. That was just something that it was just like, it made me so angry. And then, over time, it's just like, look, I learned, cool. I'm not doing this again. I'm hiring that out. So you kind of just learn along the way. Someone else could have saw that as, man, this is fun. I enjoy putting these floors in. I enjoy this challenge. I enjoy getting baked in my house while it's 90 degrees. I enjoy, doing this stuff. And now it might have affected you differently. But when it comes to something else, that would have come up, maybe you would have reacted a different way. So it's just about, being able to take the hit and then figure out what the lesson is, apply it, improve, and then hopefully when it happens again, you'll be in a better situation to handle that because it will happen again. But now you put things in place to be able to handle that situation. And I think, that's just one of the, probably to me, it's been the most apparent skill or trait of being a successful entrepreneur, because if you don't have that, you'll give up really quickly. And we've seen that many, many times.
Yep. Just a comment on all that. I think the best demonstration of this is like anybody can watch right now is Undercover Billionaire. I know we've mentioned it before, but you are seeing three different entrepreneurs, and see, this is season two. Three different entrepreneurs that have proven success, that have millions or billions of dollars, and they have been given a challenge to where they have to build $1 million business in 90 days. They're going into a new environment, like a new city that they've never been to before, and they're given $100, an old truck, and a phone with no contacts. And their job is, like I said, to build that $1 million business with knowing nobody in the city. This is one of the most daunting tasks, but it's meant to show you that that the American dream is alive in America and that anybody can build wealth. But I say all that to say that the things that they go through, they are getting punched in the mouth daily. I look at Elaine's story. Elaine is like it's the epitome of getting punched in the mouth, one thing after another. Especially on these later episodes where she's trying to build this deli business that used to be just a residence inn, and is trying to convert it to a business that can provide a million, well, that can be worth $1 million in 90 days. But along the way of doing all the construction and everything, she's getting hit with everything. The ceiling falling apart, the plumbing is there's like sewage is coming out of the ground. Got workers that are not cooperating or that are not listening to what she's telling them to do. All these things are happening simultaneously. So if you can't have that poise under pressure and be able to handle these situations and be able to solve these problems, you're gonna be out of luck.
Yep.
Like you're gonna quit. And so they're showing you that you have to have that resiliency not to quit in the face of adversity.
Yeah, man. It's very, very key. That is, I think, the most important thing to be able to do. And that leads me into the next one too, which was that problem solving skill, right? Or that ability to solve problems. Because after you have the mental fortitude to take the hit, now you got to be able to figure out, okay, how can I solve this problem, right? And to me, it's looking at being able to assess the situation, look at it, not react emotionally, at least for too long, right? It's okay to have some sort of immediate reaction, which is just normal human behavior. But being able to reel your emotions in and then evaluate the situation and make a timely decision to solve the problem. It's just a fact of the matter. I mean, it's literally something we was just talking about before we hopped on this call too. I mean, I literally had everything. It just seemed like I had so many, like in my cleaning business, I had so many leads coming in, right? Getting booking after booking after booking after booking after booking. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm assigning the jobs. I'm having this cleaner here, this cleaner here, this cleaner here. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm, strategizing, putting things together. And then boom, I get a call from one of my cleaners. Literally, this happened an hour ago. And they said, hey, I have an emergency, not good news. Which, by the way, I hate when people say that. They have bad news.
Have bad
It's
news
like,
for you.
bro, just tell me. Now you make it worse than what it actually is. Because it's like, I might not have even perceived it as that. But now it's like, anyways, that's just a side note. But it's like, oh, I got bad news. I got, my sister's having she's in the hospital or whatever. I have to go and see her in the hospital, which is fine. Cool. I'm not going to tell you, no, you can't. You need to stay and work. Fine, cool. I get it. Stuff happens. That's another thing about entrepreneurship. You can have everything planned out in your head or, on the paper, and things will never go the way you think they will. So when that happened, I had them assigned on a bunch of jobs this week. And, they had this is probably going to be my biggest week ever in the business in terms of revenue. It was definitely going to be, I'll just say it would be a big week. And, they had a majority of those jobs. So now in this point, I have to sit here and say, okay, what is the most, okay, when it first happens, like I said, I can react emotionally, which I got frustrated initially for a couple minutes. It was very frustrating, but I had to say, okay, cool. We got to figure out how we can solve this. So I had to evaluate the situation. Cool. And Patrick Bet-David talks about this a lot in his book. I love the way he talks about solving for X in terms of like, anyways, y'all should check out the book, Your Next 5 Moves. It's a good book in terms of being able to strategize in business. It's like a great book all about business strategy. So he talks about, being able to solve for the situation. And so I look at it as okay, I can evaluate the situation, and the situation is that, okay, I'm not going to have anybody to be able to handle all these jobs because now I have, 5 cleaners. 3 of them are working, 2 of them are out because of other emergencies or things that happened, things I can't account for. And I had to still figure out how can we get these jobs done. So now I'm sitting there, okay, they have a job here at 2 o'clock, which would have been happening here in an hour. But I need to figure out, okay, I need to at least be able to buy myself today. So, you know, I can look at the situation and call the customer and say, look, we gotta, reschedule you for tomorrow. And so I look at tomorrow and I move stuff around and I try to make tomorrow work at least so I can buy myself today until I can figure out what's going on with this other cleaner. So that's kind of what I mean when I'm saying assessing the situation. And now I'm able to make, you know, a timely decision to call this customer and reschedule his stuff for tomorrow so that, at least, once I figure out what's going on with this other cleaner, I can figure out the rest of the week, right? And I can go from there. But it's like just knowing how to strategize and being able to evaluate the situation and making a timely decision. It has to be timely because if I would have waited until, later in the day to call the customer and say, hey, sorry, we missed your cleaning or whatever, now you got another problem. You got a pissed off customer. But because I said, I'm gonna do it before, we're gonna get this taken care of and at least buy us today, at least, we're able to breathe a little bit. And then I'll, I guess by the time y'all hear this, I'll have figured out whether I'll have figured it out or I won't have figured it out. But that's
you don't see Alex no more. He hasn't figured it out.
Yeah, we all will know next week.
For sure.
Yeah, when you're hearing this. So,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nah, bro. That is like one of the most real things because at the end of the day, you have to be a problem solver. And that's not just for you, that's for everybody. Like you have to solve your problems. You have to solve your business's problems. You have to solve your customers' problems. You have to solve your employees' problems. You have to be able to do all of that quickly.
Yep.
And like you can have your 2 seconds, timely, not quickly, but timely is a better word to use for that. You have to be able to solve it within a reasonable amount of time. So you can't spend all of your time in your emotions. You have to have that poise under pressure. You have to be able to assess the situation, like Alex was saying, and provide the best solution. Because more times than not, they're going to all look to you to solve the problem. They're not going to solve it on their own. That's why they are in their position.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are working for you they're the ones who need guidance. Well, that in the case of employees, they're the ones who need guidance. In the case of customers, they're the ones who need the service. Everybody needs something, and you're the one that's providing all of it. That's sometimes that's a lot of burden on one person's shoulders. That tells you, is entrepreneurship right for you or not? These are the type of things you need to consider if you're that you need to think about when you're considering entrepreneurship.
Yeah, man. I think that's a spot on. It's very and you can be listening to this and be like, oh yeah, I can handle that. I can handle that. This might be something you might just have to try to see if it is something you can handle. Because you won't really know until you get put in that situation. Because I didn't necessarily know what my strengths and weaknesses are before I got into entrepreneurship in at least in this regard. Because what it does, it forces you to be able to, you have to solve things objectively. You can't be subjective in any way with entrepreneurship. You can have biases or whatever, but you have to be able to solve things and make sure everyone gets the result that they desire in every situation. And so in order to be able to do that, you just have to look at things for what they are and assess it, no matter how much, it's going to hurt you, or no matter how much, like, if I have to cancel all these jobs this week, golly, that's going to cook me because this is going to be my biggest month. But if I had to cancel these jobs, I got to cancel these jobs and I got to figure out, okay, I got to hire more people so that, next time this won't happen, which is a whole nother issue. But that's kind of what I gotta do. And if I cancel the jobs, it just is what it is. Maybe the customer maybe they'll understand, maybe they won't. Most likely they won't. But that's just the reality of it. So that's one trait. Another trait, which I just have a few more that I want to talk about. Another trait that I think is very important to be able to have is to be able to be a visionary and to have, the ability to excuse me, the ability to see into the long term and, be creative with being able to, I call it kind of like just ability to spot opportunities, where others really can't. And, having that creativity, that visionary mindset is very key because it's what's going to, number one, it's going to allow you to have a business. Man, hold on. Hello, this is Alex.
Is this text cleaning services?
Yes, it is. Do you mind if I give you a call back here in about 30 minutes?
Sure, absolutely. You have my number on the phone?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Whatever, I should leave that in there.
I was thinking the same.
Y'all can see it live.
Talking about the visionary.
Yeah. So you just had to be able to, that mindset, that ability to be able to see those opportunities and be a visionary within the company. Number one, it's on your shoulders to be that. Nobody else is going to do that. Your employees aren't going to be the visionary. They don't care. As long as they're getting paid, they're happy. They don't care. It's your job to be able to. And by the way, that was another thing too. As an entrepreneurship, the decisions that you do make will affect a lot of people. So, that's another reason it's important to be good at problem solving, because your decisions are going to affect a lot of people. In terms of like being able, you got to know, look, these people are putting food on their table based off the decisions that you make. Anyways, but yeah, that visionary aspect, that's what's going to allow your business, number one, to, be a business, right? Because it has a direction, it's going somewhere. And then number two, it's going to set you apart from other businesses and help you stay competitive in the marketplace. Because, I'm sure one thing, and this I've already seen, it's like one reason a lot of businesses start to fail is because they don't adapt, they don't change, they don't thrive, they don't adapt to the new environment. And that's just because they don't have someone in there that is a visionary, or someone that is willing to listen to someone that's a visionary, or someone, that is, able to, see into the future in that regard. So it's very important. I wouldn't say it's the most important thing, but it's very important to have that trait, because, that is what gives you a business.
Yep, and I think that I always think about the E-Myth when I think of visionary, because they talk about the three different types of personality types. They talk about the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician in that book. And the entrepreneur is what we're considering as the visionary here. They're the one who have the long-term vision for the business, and can spot change in the market that dictates opportunity, or something that they should jump on in order to stay relevant. And I think Apple is a great example for that. Apple is always putting out something new. Every year, they're gonna come out with a new phone. It's crazy how they do stuff. It's genius, but I hate it. But it's such good business. They take away your phone jack in order for you to buy two new products. Well, one of two new products, or both. That little adapter that connects to the charger port to connect. You're right, the dongle. The dongle that you have to buy in order to use old headphones, or you buy some AirPods. I think they stopped putting in the dongle in the current iPhone versions. They stopped so now you have to buy either one if you want to listen to music. That's just a way for them to stay relevant and always have a product out there, something that's always coming out that's new. And somebody has to be a visionary that's saying, this is how we stay relevant. This is how, and continue to, if you provide good service and continue to put out new content, new products, that's how you stay relevant in the market. And somebody has to be the one that's willing to do that. And if you don't have that, then you start looking like the technician turned business owner, the person who knows how to do what they're currently doing really well, but aren't willing to adapt. And those are the people who usually get left behind because they're like, they got stuck in this year or this month's way of doing things. But now we're on a whole new year. We're on a whole new decade where things have changed. So you look at places like Blockbuster. They weren't willing to adapt, and now they're out of business. And that's just how it works, because now places are there's businesses like Netflix that are all digital, where you can see digital movies or watch digital things on TV that Blockbuster wasn't providing. So I mean, just different businesses get put out of business because they're not willing to adapt.
Yeah, and it's a shame too because you can have such a big lead, and it just goes to show you, man, you can never get complacent. Because Blockbuster had a huge lead on Netflix, like decade lead on Netflix, at least. So Netflix was doing stuff, but in terms of market share, they had a majority of the market share. So being able to see that, and then being able to just see many many years ahead into because even with Apple too, it's like you already know Apple has, they already know what they're going to do for the next, at least 2 or 3 iPhones well ahead, right? They've been knew they was going to take off that they knew they was going to give you the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and then they're going to take it off and make you have to go spend money to still if you want to listen to music. They knew they were going to do that. That happened that was planned many.
I got to comment on that. Apple is genius. Because back when so we used to do jailbreak on our phones back like in high school and stuff. My dad used to love jailbreak. Jailbreak was nothing but everything that Apple plans on doing, but they're just slow. They just do it methodically. Yeah. They bring out stuff like search emojis. That's something that people have been begging for. Or search pictures. And people have been begging for stuff like that. But they're saying we're going to put this out slowly. This is going to be with the next update. We're going to update your phone, but your current phone is going to slow down, and you're going to need a new phone. We're going to stay relevant. But we're going to keep on putting out little things and like give you a little bit at a time to say, hey, here's a little carrot. Like we got. You can search your emojis now to update your phone, but your current phone is going to be getting slower at the same time, and you're going to be begging for a new phone later on when they release something new, such as I don't know what they're going to release next, but it's always something that they're releasing that is making you want to get the next product.
Yeah, man. And they know they can't give it all to you at once. They could have been given the iPhone 11, they could have had the same features in there. They could have had that 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They definitely had the technology, but in order to stay relevant, you gotta, again, it's that methodical. It's playing chess. They're not playing checkers. Had they just given you everything, who knows where they could be now, right? So it's very important to have that, ability to look at things like that and say, how can I still continue to innovate well into even having a successful business? I have such, even if you're dominating the marketplace, you got to figure out how can I innovate, because you'll lose that market share. I remember yesterday, actually, a customer had called me. They said, "Hey, I'm not getting good service with Mary Maids. I want to go ahead and try a new company. When are you available?" And we took care of them. We did good. Now we win his business monthly. You can lose market share just like that if you get complacent. So very important, very key. The next trait that I want to talk about too is, which I have 2 more. The next one I want to talk about is leadership and having the ability to lead in a sense where people want to actually follow you. Because it's one thing to say you're a leader, but if people don't want to follow you, then good luck. So, do people respect you? Do people want to follow you? Do people, look at you as someone that can lead them and they want to follow? Do they feel inspired by you? I don't really know how you develop that skill or that trait. I feel like that's one thing, is like something like that is usually innate. Not to say you can't develop it, but those kind of things are usually innate. When people see you, so passionate about something, or they see you so committed to something, or they see you in the trenches in there with them, they want to follow somebody like that. And if they see that you take something serious, they're going to take it serious. It's kind of like too, when I think about like even with the podcast too, and you think about getting listeners on the podcast, people don't start listening to you consistently until they know that you are serious about it, right? Until they know that you are going to consistently put out content or podcasts. Because if they listen to you for one episode and then you put out another episode next week, and then you fall off the next week, and then the week after you put out one, and then you off the next 2 weeks, and then you put out another one, they can't necessarily follow that. They don't want to follow that. They don't even care to try to keep up with you because you can't even stay consistent. They don't know when to expect it. People want familiarity. So you got to be able to give them that. And that same thing applies in business too. People want to know that you are going to be committed to this no matter what. Like they want to see how you react to stuff. They want to see how you manage things. They want to, in order for them to know, hey, this is somebody that I actually want to follow. This is someone that I trust. I'm okay with putting, because like I said, when someone follows you, they're essentially putting their well-being in your hands. As especially if they're an employee, their well-being is in your hands. So if I'm a business owner and I start a business and I'm, just lackluster, lackadaisical, and you can see it, if I'm an employee, I'm like, look, I don't feel safe here. I don't, employees want safety. They want security. They want to be able to follow someone that's like, hey, okay, at least this guy knows, or this person, this girl knows what they're doing. I'm gonna always be able to at least get my paycheck. I'm all, no matter what, this business is, I can see this business going somewhere. So that's something that's very important as well.
Man, that has so much truth to it. I was really trying to articulate everything I wanted to say with that one, but it's like you have to be trustworthy to the point where people can say, I can assure myself that my bills will be paid if I'm listening to you. Yeah. And it's at the most fundamental level. If I'm going to work for you, I can assure that I'm going to be safe, because you go back to the cash flow quadrant. You are hiring employees more times than not as a business owner. So in order to, if you are talking to employees, you have to talk their language. You have to understand what makes them tick. They want safety, security, stability. If they want those things, you have to be able to clearly provide that for them. And I think that comes with providing a clear-cut direction of where this business is going, especially if you're just starting up. Like, you have to truly, for one, know where you're going, and two, be so passionate about it that people just can see that in the way you talk to them. Like, you have a clear-cut direction of where are we going to end up at, how are we going to get there, when we're going to get there, and how we're going to get there. You have to know all those things, and you have to be able to tell people you have to be able to show people how they can play a role and get in there. Like, so they need to also feel like they have some sense of importance in the business. They have a role and responsibility in making your vision a success. And so it's like a combination of all those things that all embodies leadership.
Yep. Leadership, man, is key. And like I said, it could be something that most people, it's just innate. If you're a leader, most of the time you're just a leader. Not to say you can't develop it, but a lot of people, it's just innate in a lot of people. And then the last thing I wanted to mention in terms of the traits of successful entrepreneurs is someone that is not risk averse. And so when I say this, obviously everyone has different levels of risk tolerance, right? And so, but you got to remember what the definition of entrepreneurship is, right? I just said it earlier. Entrepreneurs are people that, take on some sort of business activity to start a business with a financial risk in hope of a profit, right? So essentially you take on risk for reward. So you have to in some capacity be able to take a risk, right? And know, because the thing about entrepreneurship is it's 20/20 hindsight, right? It's really easy to sit here and say, oh yeah, of course Jeff Bezos should have started Amazon. But look, whenever it was, the 90s and right, he's sitting there, trying to raise $1 million for capital and getting all these capital commitments, and from all these different, I think it was 20 different people that he got $1 million from, which those people obviously are really sitting good right now based off the equity stakes that they had off of some $50,000 investment. But at that point, it was very hard to see into that future as, oh, I'm going to, start a business that's going to be able to revolutionize a whole industry in terms of e-commerce. It's very hard to see that. But you have to be able to look at it as, okay, I'm taking a calculated risk. And this is why I was talking about asymmetrical bets, right? You had to know before I even say that, I will say this. So to me, I look at it as, you got to know what place you are in life too, in terms of like, your ability to take on risk. That's very important. This goes back to knowing yourself too. But you need to know, like, if I'm, in a place to be able to take risk, you should. But the thing is, most people still won't, because they're not comfortable with it. When in reality, they could try something different. They could take a risk, and they could be perfectly fine, because they're in a position in life to be able to do that, right? You're going to get to a point in life where you won't be in a position in life to be able to take on the same amount of risk, right? So if you're a younger person, most of your risks are going to be asymmetrical bets, meaning the upside is going to be the potential upside is going to be a lot bigger than potential downside, right? So whenever I decide to start my business, right, and I start achieving financial freedom, at a young age, it's an asymmetrical bet, right? I know, bruh, the upside, the worst case scenario is going to be everyone else's normal, right? I'm going to potentially, get into this business. Okay, cool. I lose my $10,000, $20,000 investment. What do? I go back to my job, right? That's my worst case. And that's literally the worst thing that can happen because I can still get a job. Like that is the ultimate worst case scenario. And then I try again if you want, right? But best case scenario, you could literally change your entire life and generations behind you, right? And that's like, to me, it's not even like a toss up. It's so clear as to what you should be doing. And so that's why I say you got to know what position you're in life, because like I said, once it gets, if you're now, and I'm not going to say this applies to anyone listening, but you cannot deny the fact that once you have, a more established life and you've gotten into a role or into a lifestyle of, kids and a spouse and, other responsibilities, it's now a harder decision to make in terms of taking certain risks. Not to say you can't take risks, but your risks are going to have to look differently. You might not be able to cash out your entire savings like someone that's 21 could. You might be able to only to cash out something. Maybe you could pull 25,000 out your 401k and take that penalty. So the risk in that case is going to be that 10% penalty that you're going to pay plus whatever you saved in the 401k, which whatever. But the upside is going to be whatever, upside could potentially come from that business. So being able to decipher that and know that and look at that and evaluate. But the reason I say this is because I know a lot of people, young people, are listening to us and it's like, you haven't done anything and you're so scared to take a risk and time is passing you by. Like, what are you doing? If you listen to this, and Lord have mercy, if you listen to this and you are below, a certain age, 30 years old, it's like, yo, you ain't got kids, you ain't got a wife, you ain't got, all this stuff. You just sitting in the crib watching Netflix after you get off of work. What are you doing? Take the risk. Take the risk. You have nothing to lose, literally. What are you doing now? It's kind of like, bro, and I use the analogy of females a lot, but it's kind of like, I always used to tell myself in college, whenever, walking around college campus, I would see a girl that I thought was cute. And I would always try to tell myself, bro, just go talk to her. Just go talk to her. Just go talk to her. Like, you trying to get the courage. Just go talk to her. And one thing I always told myself was, look, you ain't have her before, so it's not like you could lose her. So regardless, you go talk to her. Worst case scenario, it's going to be the same thing you just came from. You didn't have her already. Best case scenario, you could get her, right? Just because you went and talked to her. So go talk to her. You're going to feel whatever. You take an L, you might feel the effect of it, but you're going to forget about it later on. Same thing happens with business, man. Got to be able to evaluate the situation and look at where you are in life and say, cool, is this going to be an asymmetrical bet? Can I do this right now? Because, by the way, there's going to be asymmetrical bets at every point in life. You just got to be able to strategize and know where they are and be able to see that. Oh, I got a headache, bro.
All right, I'm gonna take it from here then. But now this was a big one, I think, and this is really just to get started in the first place. So most people are not willing to get started because they have some sort of thing that's stopping them. I talked about this on one of the videos on Money Monopolizers on our Instagram page, and that's fear more times than not. I think that fear can be stimulated from a lot of different things. But one thing I always think about is that people feel like they don't know enough. They feel like there's something that is preventing them from getting started. So usually that's like, I don't know enough information about what I'm trying to get into. And I think that's the difference between the person who can become successful versus the person who never takes action. Is the fact that they are not, well, they want to know everything before they get started. But somebody who becomes successful says, I don't know everything, but there's people out there who do know it, that do know more than I do. And I'm willing to go find those people. I'm willing to go to get started and learn along the way. I'm willing to just to learn. Yeah, like I said, to learn as I go. And I think Grant Cardone really made this very clear to me when he has said it. He said that courage isn't a lack of fear. Courage is having fear and doing it anyway. Yeah. And without fear, there is no courage. And so in this case, I think you actually mentioned courage earlier, talking about with the females analogy. Like, you have to, you have fear. Like, you worry about going to talk to her, but at the same time, you have to just overcome that fear and go do it anyway. Yep. And that's what entrepreneurship is. I have fear about getting started with this, but at the same time, I know that what it can do for me, and I'm just willing to go take the risk and do it anyway. And then once you get on the other side of fear, you be like, man, why was I even scared in the first place? This is great. Like, let me keep on going with this. This is exactly where I needed to be. And that's usually like the biggest obstacle for somebody who's trying to get started.
Yeah, man. Definitely. It's that, and that's why it's like, man, if you're young, that's why it's like, man, get that out your head. Cause I promise, once you're older, you can talk to any older person. They'll be like, man, I wish I was in your age. And that's why I said time is your biggest asset. Like, time is always going to be the number one most prized commodity, no matter how much money you ever have. Like I said, if you want to switch, you could switch lives with Warren Buffett. You know, if I asked you if you want to switch lives with Warren Buffett, you probably wouldn't, because he's 90 years old. Yeah, he has $90 billion, but he ain't got a lot of time.
Right.
So it's like, you have the thing that's so valuable. And that's why it's like, that's why I go all in into everything right now. Cause it's like, man, I'm never going to get this opportunity again. I know the worst feeling in the world would be sitting there old and like, man, if I'd have just tried that, or I could just imagine how trash that would feel. Mm-hmm. So very important, man, especially for my young folks out there that are listening. Got to be able to look at it and just do it anyway. So, but yeah, man. So I know I had mentioned those are all my traits, and I don't know if you had any other additional ones, but
I came in here with no traits, but I was writing them down as you had first said it, that you was about to talk about traits, and I wrote down mine, and the reason I was able to talk about it so easy because we wrote down the same stuff just with different words. But I had one more that I just wanted to really hit on, because this, I think, separates the ones who stay or become successful versus the ones who start and then quit. That word is discipline. Without discipline, that's literally the one thing that stops most people from ever achieving what they want to. So a lot of people get into entrepreneurship and then they will try it out for like a month or two and then be like, oh man, this ain't for me. Like, I hit a roadblock. I hit something in my business that stopped me from the path that I was going on, and I wasn't able to adapt. So now I stopped altogether. We always say countless times, if you never quit, success is inevitable. And that's all there is to it. Like, you have to have a discipline to say that no matter how I feel about this, or no matter what's going on in my life, I'm gonna keep on going, because I know that my why, or the reason I started in the first place, is stronger or greater than anything or any obstacle that's standing in my way. And so if you can embody that in your own life, entrepreneurship is the right person. It's the right place for you, because you're gonna get hit with many times, but if you can withstand all of that and persevere through all of it, you will be successful.
Yeah, man. I think that's a great one. Very, very important. If you want to do anything at a high level, that's probably one of the most important things to have to be able to do. So it's definitely going to be applicable with entrepreneurship. So, and there's a bunch of things we can kind of, add on there too, but most of it was encompassed into everything we just talked about. Mm-hmm. So I know I mentioned earlier briefly, look, I'll give you an alternative if entrepreneurship wasn't something that was for you. So one thing, that I had recently learned about was the whole concept of entrepreneurship and what that actually is, right? So you don't necessarily have to have all those traits that we just kind of spoke about, but you can leverage other people's skills, other people's traits to be able to do that, right? And so that's what an entrepreneur is, right? You hear the concept of entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship. So an entrepreneur is essentially it's just like an entrepreneur. Like, you act just like an entrepreneur, but you don't necessarily put up the money, right? You don't have to, so you don't have really any risk, essentially, because you are essentially an entrepreneur within someone else's business. So I know at my 9 to 5 we would have things like you have obviously the CEO, and then there's like different business units within the company. So there's different people leading the business unit, and based off of that, you can get equity in the company. And so instead of obviously you don't have to own 100%. You're not going to own 100% of the company, but you don't have to put any money up. So it's an infinite return in terms of financially, right? And so even honestly, I don't know if a lot of people know Steve Ballmer, but Steve Ballmer is the owner of the Clippers. And he's someone that is actually an entrepreneur. He actually got hired by Bill Gates at Microsoft in 1980, when I was like 5 years after Microsoft got founded. So entrepreneur essentially someone that comes on very early, You don't need to, but it's usually someone that comes on very early. He got hired as like, I think they said he was like the 30th employee at Microsoft, and they paid him $50,000 salary, but they gave him 5 to 10% of the company. And so he essentially came on to lead the company, in a certain direction, right? And so he worked as an executive, a high level, I think a C-suite executive for like 20 years. And then in 2000, he became CEO of Microsoft, and now he's worth $86 billion just based off of his equity stake early on. You're talking 5% of a almost $1 trillion company. That's a big, big, big amount. And so it's essentially something you could do, right? Steve Jobs essentially did the same. A lot of people don't even know that Steve Jobs got fired from Apple and then actually came back in an entrepreneur role because they wasn't rocking with him like that after he came back. So, it's something that a lot of people could do. Now, obviously, those are outliers in terms of examples, but the principle and the premise still remains. If you don't necessarily feel like you want to put up the money, or you don't feel like you have all those intangible skills that we kind of just talked about, not intangibles, but skills that we just talked about, you might need to partner with somebody or pair up with somebody that is, starting their own business, but you can come in there as a number 2 or a number 3, right? And be able to take it. And that's what it says. It goes back to knowing yourself, right? If the ego thing or the whole concept of being an entrepreneur and saying CEO and owning 100% of equity in a company is not a big thing for you, which it might be for other people, I'm not knocking it, but if it's not, entrepreneur role might definitely be better for you in that sense, right? If you can find a good company, for example, if I was looking for someone to come on into my company, obviously, they'd have to be the right fit. But if it's the right person, I give them a piece of the equity, and they're going to help me take the company a lot further than I could have taken it before. So it's a win-win situation for the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur. So, yeah, but obviously to be an entrepreneur, you pretty much treat the company like it's your own.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily, put up any money in that sense. But you act like you work just like an entrepreneur. You have a lot of those same skills that we kind of just mentioned, but you don't necessarily do that. So, but that's, and I know we had this conversation a few weeks ago, but I always said that's how I want to hire people. Not to say I hire them to say like I'm giving them equity, but I want them to treat my business as their own. I know everyone won't. It's not their business. So if they don't, especially if they don't have any equity, they're not going to treat it. So I might give someone, some equity in the business if it gets to a certain level. But for the most part, it's like, I want people that will be on my team that won't treat this like it's their own, because that's the only way that we can kind of, take it to the next level. And so that's the alternative I wanted to present to someone that, you don't have. Look, Steve Ballmer, 90 billion, Steve Jobs, you don't have to be entrepreneur. If the money thing, whatever, is something that you want, you can go get equity somewhere. So, but if it's about the ego thing, which I don't say ego to say it in a bad way, everyone has ego. So if it's about being an entrepreneur, the CEO, then obviously you have to go start your own business. So yeah, but that's kind of my alternative. So yeah.
No, that was a good take on that one. Especially, I'm so glad that you mentioned what you wanted. You were talking about how you want people that's going to treat your business the way that you would treat it. And that's what I was going to utilize that to tell everybody else that's looking to be an entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur in the world, I don't care who it is, everybody who is building some type of big business like that is looking for entrepreneurs in life. They're looking for the person who would treat their business as their own. Alex is just one of infinity. Every entrepreneur at some point wants to be able to relay all of their day-to-day life to somebody. Well, maybe not everybody, but a majority of them are started the business not to work in it for the entirety of their life. They want to be able to enjoy everything that the business has reaped for them. And so if you can find that true entrepreneur that is willing to be like your number 2 person, like your right hand man, right hand woman, whoever it may be, that can run your business the way that you want it to, that's like a needle in a haystack. Like, it's so few and far between for people that's actually move like that or that operate like that. So this is like there's a strong space for that in the world, and I think that's like a golden opportunity for somebody who has that personality type that may not want to own everything, but is willing to work like an entrepreneur, just doesn't want to be like necessarily the main face or the CEO of the company.
Yeah, and be compensated almost like an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
So yeah, man, it's just there's multiple ways to do it. So, but yeah, man, there y'all have it. That's the method for, or those are the, I think that if you can look at that, listen to that, look at it objectively, be honest with yourself, you can figure out whether you want to be an entrepreneur, or whether entrepreneurship in the sense that we talked about it is for you. Like I said, it's not about investing into assets. This is about starting a business, and whether starting a business and being able to sustain that business is for you, because it is not for everyone. So that being said, that is it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today, and if you did, we'd appreciate if you rated us 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at the Monopolizers, or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged, so be sure to check that out and share those posts.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.